If you're a saddle hunter, check out Hunt Arsenal. They make quality saddle hunting products designed to help you stay mobile, comfortable, and ready for the hunt. Whether you're heading deep into the woods or setting up for the perfect ambush, Hunt Arsenal has you covered. Check out Hunt Arsenal and gear up for your next hunt. When you finally put that trophy animal on the ground, you want to make sure it's handled right from the start. That's where tagged and bagged taxidermy preservation kits come in handy. They take pride in providing high quality preservation kits to help protect your hard earned trophy and ensure it's ready for you on the next step. Don't let an incredible hunt go to waste. When you tag it, be sure to bag it with tagged and bagged taxidermy preservation kits. Give them a shot with your next trophy. Welcome to the podcast. Um, but yeah, Keegan, you really were pulling my mind a little bit when we were hanging out with Johnny from Tagged and Bagged. Just thinking and talking about archery, your setup, your experiences, and everything. That's ultimately why I was like, you'd be awesome for the podcast, and let alone your new account, Relentless Ridge. Just kind of updating myself on what you've all done on there has just been super fun, and I really like your content. But
Appreciate that.
yeah, once again, welcome. Um, so just to start off easy, this is kind of a question I always start off with, especially for new guests. But tell me a little bit about yourself. You can start from wherever, and how'd you get into hunting?
Yeah. So first things I did was when I was about 13 is when I really kind of started hunting more of the traditional go out with a shotgun, Orange Army type thing. A little bit before that, I was hunting with my dad, just kind of sitting there watching. Um, but to be honest, I really didn't get too into hunting till a couple years ago when I kind of got up bow hunting again, like we were talking. Um, and my drive for that was, I'm having kids, stuff like that. I'm looking for a hobby. And so I just decided, well, let's try hunting again. But this time I want to make it hard on myself. Let's do bow hunting right away. And so I decided to go into the bow hunting thing. Took me a couple years to really get into it, but if I'm being honest, it's been amazing from start to finish with working with Johnny or even some of my other buddies from over in Michigan. So yeah, it's been a real game changer for me over the last couple of years. Um, and just getting after it with the bow has been just a lot of fun. But to be honest, the gun thing kind of always holds true in the heart of, just kind of having that same passion from the start. Getting out in the Orange Army, doing some deer drives, stuff like that in Wisconsin. But I'm enjoying it all the way around. But bow hunting truly has captured my heart.
Yeah, talk about it. I'm right there with you. Along with many other types of hunting, but bow hunting is definitely, top one of the top, if not the very top of my list. Uh, what
Yeah.
what type of land are you hunting? Like whether when you started off as a kid, was it public, private, and what do you do now?
So, yeah, when I was a kid, my grandpa owns about 35 acres and but it's all farmland. So we didn't really hunt the fields all that much just because as soon as the first couple shots go off, all those deer disappear. But we pretty much have a good access in the state land. So we would always park up by his house and we would have good access into the state land to kind of get down in there. And so we'd always have the good runs. When you start hearing those shots pop off, the deer like to go through there. So it was always really nice, at least having that access. Right now, I'm hunting mainly public land, but this year I am planning on hunting over on my grandpa again for some private opportunities. And we'll see where that goes. Right now, I will say I got a couple nice bucks on camera. And so I'm kind of excited for hunting over there. But I've always had really good deer movement. So right by my house is like a quarter acre. And then my father-in-law lives right behind me. And so he's got a little less than an acre, but it's all state land surrounding it. So again, it's more access points rather than it is actually hunting on private. But then I can kind of get into that easy access and get in there. And so I've had a good opportunity where right when I bought my house, they actually logged out all the state land around me. And so deer movement back there was horrible for like the first couple of years of even bow hunting back there. And now that all the green up is coming up and those deer feel like they have a place to hide, it's over the last 2 years has taken off back there in buck movement, doe movement, just everything. So honestly, it's been pretty awesome being able to see that transition of like having nothing back there to all of a sudden, I mean, there's a new buck every day during the rut kind of thing. So that's pretty exciting, open up the trail camera, seeing all of the pictures that come through when I'm stuck at work. Um, but when I'm back there though, it's all public. So I go back there and see what's all moving. And then on days where the wind isn't right this year, I now have the opportunity to go over by my grandpa again and hunt some private, at least before the Orange Army kind of gets out there, I can hopefully get on a nice buck back there. So.
Yeah, good stuff. And I liked how you mentioned, sorry, Logan.
Is a lot of that public deep timber, or do you have any field edges that cut through? It's just kind of interesting to hear how different states and their public lands work in terms of if you've got a lot of fields and minimal tree draws, or if it's 100% deep hardwoods and hard to get around in.
Yeah, most of it's all honestly right behind me. A lot of it is hardwoods, and then it's all running along swamp edges. So a lot of it's all swamp that I'm hunting. Now there is farm field, but it's not anywhere I would say close. I mean, it's probably a 5 mile hike to where I'm going to
Oh,
be,
wow.
where I would be hunting. But they pretty much come through. They kind of do a big circle around me. So it's hard to, I guess, explain in a way, but there's the eastern spot where I would say that field is. They do a northern circle, and then throughout the day they would transition and come all the way around, come west, then they go south, and then they work their way all the way back east over to the field. So I kind of have them calculated where they actually cross a few roads to kind of get there. So it's kind of a weird way of kind of getting in there to get the food source. But it works out for me because I know where their food source is at. So I try to cut them off in between bedding and their food source, which has worked out really good for me over the last couple of years of, seeing, deer, whether it's does, bucks, whatever it is. So I kind of got their hard runs ran through there, and I kind of know where they're all going to be running. And I do know exactly where they're bedding because I've bumped them out a few times already. And so I've just been lucky enough that they've stuck around for me that I try not to bump them too much. I always try to, I've always kind of learned, I guess, you might be able to bump a mature buck out of his bed once or twice. After that once or twice, if you start bumping him 3, 4 times, he's probably not coming back. Um, but I've been lucky enough. I've only bumped him out of bed once or twice in a year, and then I kind of just back out. I try not to get I like being, in their bedroom when I'm hunting. I try to stay within like a 60-yard radius of where I know their bedding is. But I'm not personally going to go and actually set up right in their bed because I don't want to mess that up, knowing that at least if I bump them once, I have that opportunity that they're going to come back.
Definitely. And I think this time of year too, like, I mean, at least earlier summer stages when I'm back, whether it's logging or working on food plots, cutting trails, all of the above. I noticed that like if I do bump deer, they're more likely to come back this time of year versus, early season. Then it's like it gets real tricky with that situation of bumping, especially the bucks. It's like they're always kind of on their toes, and when it comes to that, it's like it's a real risk, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely understand that, and what like my first year that I really started bow hunting, so I would say it was probably about 4 years ago is when I really took it back up. And not really knowing what I'm looking at in the sense of like getting that close into bedding and everything. I walked in on these deer and I set up a trail camera, um, and I had it where I thought they were coming in and out of the swamp, and I was getting nothing on camera. And so mid-season, I think it was probably October, I'm like, well, I'm going to go in there and just see what's going on. Where are they going? I know they're back there. I just don't know exactly where they're at. And I walked back there and I actually made just a quick reel out of it. Everywhere around the camera, other than in front of it, was tore up. I mean, it was like scrapes, rubs. I mean, every tree was just raked. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I missing here? And literally, I'm sitting there taking my trail camera down, and I stop for like a split second, and I turn around, and not even 10 yards from me, he stands up in a bed in the swamp. He's staring right at me, and I'm like, oh crap, like I was not ready for that at all. And I didn't have any opportunity at that point to get my bow out, but he took off. And right then and there, I'm like, okay, I'm way too close. Something is not right for me. So I backed up a little bit, kind of put it into where I thought more of a transition line was, and put that camera up. And then I was getting pictures every night, bucks walking through there, does walking through there. And it was like, okay, sometimes being a little too close, in my opinion, is not good, because, and that's where sometimes even the trail camera thing comes into play. Sometimes you don't need a trail camera in there to tell yourself a story. You just get in there, hunt it, and just see what's happening. Trail cameras are nice, in my opinion, for when I'm trying to take inventory of deer, like right now, trying to see what's moving through there. Are they still using the same runs? But other than that, during season, I really try not to let the camera sway me into where I'm going to be hunting that day or at that point, just because I've already had it mess me up so many times where I'm like, I got to hunt this spot, and then they're not there that day. And I personally feel like I just wasted a whole day of hunting. And when you have kids and stuff like that, that you're trying to work around schedules, and you might only have a few days to hunt in that week. I don't want to waste that day because I trusted a trail camera to tell me what I should have just walked in and found. Um, so I try to find where I'm trying to set up by just boots on the ground looking at it. Obviously, going off of a camera can be somewhat helpful for, like I said, taking, and looking at what deer are in there. If I'm seeing absolutely nothing, and maybe I'll try moving over a little bit, or maybe they move their bedding, so I just need to be over, especially when all the bucks start separating. September area, they're starting to think about what the does are doing. Bachelor groups start splitting up, so now you had all your nice big bucks all summer long, and now all of a sudden they disappeared. So try not to let that sway you in some cases.
100%. And I always tell people too, I mean, I try to tell myself as well, like if I'm interested, like obviously right now is a good time of year, like you were saying, to kind of keep track, see where they're still running through and if anything changed like that. But if you're interested for like a late season hunt or even like rifle muzzleloader or something like that, to set up those cameras now, and I mean, especially if you're using trail or cell cameras, then set those up now because then later you'll thank yourself for not having to walk back there and bump anything, or you'll kind of get a pattern and know when they switch to their winter range, as some would say, or just like their new patterns come late season.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely can agree with that. I mean, I actually like running my cameras almost year round. I might have like a month or two where I pull them out in winter just to get, fresh battery, charge everything up, make sure they're all out and functioning properly. But I personally just enjoy watching the growth of the deer too. And I'm one to name my deer. That's just what I like to do. So I'm one to, watch them grow and just see where those, how their antlers grow. And oh man, I've been watching that one pretty closely. And, I might give them a name at that point and we'll kind of go from there. But I just enjoy the whole process of watching those deer grow all the way from start to finish. And so having that same detail going into then the later season, like you're saying, now I might be able to watch that singular buck and kind of figure out where his home range is. Like you're saying, is there a 50-mile radius that this deer just wants to hunker down in? I actually have that going on right now with a buck that I'm working with, or watching, I should say, over by my grandpa's place, and I'll personally say I've had him on camera one time because of where my camera is located. Whereas my grandpa actually has a camera, like a big digital camera, and he'll send me pictures of him all day long. But I've only had him on camera once because he's staying in one singular spot. He just feeds out there. He's a really nice deer. And I'm hoping that if he stays to that same pattern and staying in that same area, I'm trying to make a game plan now on how I'm going to get to that area on the right wind or whatever it is to have the best opportunity at that deer. Um, and just kind of going from there and seeing where it's at. I'm not going to go and take a camera now and go set it right in where I think his bedroom is because I already know he's there at this point. I don't need to know any more than that. I know he's there. I don't need 50 million trail camera pictures, as nice as that would be able to see him every day and go, oh man, this is how big he is. But honestly, I just know he's a big deer. I don't really care about the score of any deer that I'm really looking at. Um, as long as it's big and it gets the heart pumping, that's all I care about.
100%. I think you're playing that exactly how you need to, like you said, you don't want to get in there too close in his bedroom and spook him off from there, and then who knows where he's going next.
Right, for sure. And and as it is with a lot of private land, you have neighbors and stuff like that. Not always, but you always have neighbors. And the neighbor across the street from my grandpa is a super nice dude. He he'd come help me drag it out just as much as I know he'd help. I had to go help him. But it's still one of those things. I want that deer.
Yeah.
So, trying to make him not spook across because he would have to cross the road and go into some other, food and everything, which he could definitely do that at any point. But if I can keep him there and feeling safe, he's more likely to stay.
100%.
especially during the summer months. I mean, when they got such a tight home range, it's not like you need to worry about him scattering somewhere else until late September, October, when he might venture off further a little bit. But for me, at least, Nebraska, Iowa, the home ranges of these bucks and their bachelor groups is just pretty tight. And with putting up trail cams, our grass gets up to waist high, or it's just like you can't even see where these bucks are traveling. It's almost not worth putting up a trail cam until I can at least try to pick out some trails and corridors where they're traveling in terms of land that I'm not familiar with.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the one nice thing I will say. I mean, there's a lot of swamps, at least around me. So when I'm doing, my hunts or watching, it's you can pretty visually tell pretty early where they're going. You can see a lot of that stuff just from e-scouting. You just kind of zoom in and you can see their trails, which makes it really easy when you're trying to pinpoint some major trail systems when they're, running through there. I can imagine when that grass is pretty short, over there that it's hard to tell that stuff.
For sure.
So tell us a little bit about where oh man, I'm blanking. Relentless Ridge came from and how that all started.
Yeah, for sure. So I was basically just starting into the outdoor industry. Like I said, a couple of years ago, wasn't really looking at it as a something I was planning on taking into what I've done now. It was more or less I started going to some outdoor shows. Ended up meeting Johnny with Drop 'em Outdoors and Tagged and Bagged, and we just hit it off. We were kind of talking hunting. He was talking a lot more bird hunting, where I was talking more whitetail. But literally, he came over by my place one day. We had a couple beers, we were talking, and next thing you know, I was just working shows with him, just going, helping set up, doing all that. And we pretty much just started going at Drop 'em Outdoors, and we started um, trying to grow that and make that something. And Tagged and Bag kind of started up. And so he was going with that, and so we still were doing the barn party and stuff like that, trying to do stuff with Project Fire Buddies, and then it just kind of worked out where I was like, I think I could do this myself and give back more, rather than just trying to being the helper in the back. Not that you need those, don't get me wrong, but I was like, I think I could start this up and I could do some donations towards that, or I can work with Johnny with trying to grow the barn party and doing those things. And so I sat down with Johnny the one night we were talking, and I just said, "Hey, I think I'm going to start up my own thing." And he's like, "Do it." He's like, We'll be here supporting, and you'll be supporting us. Like, why wouldn't we do that?" So it just kind of all of a sudden happened where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start this up. I'm going to start my own channel. I don't mind recording myself. I don't mind making videos and doing that. And so I was like, let's give it a try and see what happens. Well, ever since I've started it, it's been nothing but, in my opinion, fantastic. I mean, I've been helping with Drop 'em Outdoors, Tagged and Bagged, and then even my buddies from Michigan, and we're kind of helping those guys out, and they help me out, and and then it's just shooting ideas off of each other. It's just been great. But it kind of started with the Relentless Ridge, was kind of more or less one of those things. I've always been one that I'm more like a train, right? When I'm going up a hill, I'm not maybe the fastest, but I'm definitely gonna never stop. I'm just gonna keep going. So I was like, all right, let's be relentless. And then the ridge just kind of pulled off where it was just like, you know what? I'm always trying to get over the next ridge. So, and seeing what's next and seeing what's after that. So that's where the name kind of came from. It started off as more of the Relentless Ridge Pursuit, but it was kind of more of a mouthful. So I just went with the Relentless Ridge. But it was a great thing. And ever since then, it's been nothing but great. I mean, getting on the podcast with you, and then I got some other things in the works. I'm actually going to be announcing this week, but you'll be the first one kind of to hear it on here, as I ended up teaming up with 2 Gear. And so that's all official. So that'll be getting announced this week. So I'll be running their camo and running their equipment, and that'll be something that I'm really excited for this year. Honestly, it's been a blessing all the way around. And so, yeah, that's pretty much where it's gone, but I can't wait to see where it keeps going, to tell you the truth, if you would have told me 2 years ago that this is what I would have been doing on my nights after work and doing stuff like that, I would have called you a liar, but I've been enjoying it, man. It's been a amazing thing.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and congrats on the new partnership. That's huge. Um, what did you like start making content like before Relentless Ridge became a thing? Or like what
Yeah.
was yeah, go from there.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I pretty much, I mean, I would say, so I made some of my hunting videos, would have been last year and the year prior. It was definitely some stepping stones to figure that all out, which way to have the camera, all that stuff. But I would say it really started when I started working with Drop 'em Outdoors. Just kind of making little reels and stuff like that, and some more joking ones, and then just trying to kind of learn it. And then from there, it transitioned into more of a um, actually getting a camera now and trying to make good quality hunting film. My turkey video that just came out was like one of my first, I would say, real ones. I spent some actual quality time trying to edit and do. It's still definitely a work in progress. I mean, if I'm being honest, one person I'm trying to, I guess, chase in my um, how I want to edit my videos and make them look and do everything is going to be Brian Call with Gritty. Um, he's been a true, like, I've been watching his films and stuff like that, and the quality that he puts out and the editing process that he does has been kind of cool watching it. And then I'm trying to figure it out as I go to kind of seeing what he's doing. And so I have to give a shout out to him because he's been a kind of I'm going to say my hero of the outdoor industry, of learning and seeing what he's doing on his films. And I'm trying to kind of incorporate a lot of that in so I can hopefully one day get to that quality. Um, but I would say right now, for what I'm doing and the time I have to put into the films, I'm thinking I'm putting out decent content. So let me know if I'm not. But yeah, I mean, this year is going to be my first true year of really trying to film properly, I'm going to say, and try to put out good quality content. Where in the past, like I said, it's been more of making some reels, making some videos, kind of just glomming them together, not really understanding how to tell the story. And that's probably going to be one of the hardest processes because you can film every single thing, but it doesn't mean you know how to tell a story. And that's my big thing that I want to work on this year. I would say that would be my goal for the end of this season, is to better tell a story so that way when you film it and you put it all together, it all mashes and seems right.
Totally, yeah. And I give you a lot of credit for, you know, jumping into it and just learning as you go too. Um, I know I remember looking through your Instagram, all even the reels on there, like even though they're just not just reels, but like they're just reels and it's not like a whole YouTube video, but it's still at a level where I still need to get to that level, you know? It takes a lot of dedication and practice, and I just give you a lot of credit for that. And I'm
Appreciate
with
that.
you. I'm with you on the like trying to tell a story while filming because I've made films that I've just never released before, and I'm never gonna because I just don't think I did the quality work that I want to like release to the public, if that makes sense. And it's
No, I
all
get
like,
that.
yeah, and it comes back to like I don't have a good story. I feel like it's not catching like the parts of the hunt that I want it to catch and the stuff like that. And like overall, just like I always think about it of like what if like either like a young kid is, you know, just doom scrolling on YouTube or something, or someone that just doesn't hunt at all. I want them to get something from it, even though they have no idea like what may be going on exactly or what I'm talking about or something like that. I want it to make like an impression on the viewers, and it just doesn't always hit that. So I give you a lot of credit for what you've done so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes down the line.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean the biggest thing with like the reels and stuff for me is always like I've had that pretty down pat of like, okay, this is what you need to have attention grabbing and stuff like that, or you got to have the certain things. That I will say, again, I have to give a shout out to Johnny on that one. You know, he kind of helped me guide me through what a lot of people are looking for. And so that kind of caught on day one. And then the other part I have to give myself, I guess, a little credit is I'm more or less one of those people, like I said, I'm gonna just smash my head into the tabletop until I figure it out. And that's kind of what happened there. Is I just kept going, saw what stuck. You know, you watch the views and stuff like that. I don't ever really want to be necessarily always chasing the views or feeling bad when a reel only gets 200 views where another one's getting 2,000. Um, but if you more or less take that for a lesson of like, okay, what made that one get 2,000 views versus what this one only got 200? And then you just kind of watch that. I'm still learning that with the filming process of understanding, you know, what makes a film truly stand out, what makes it where people want to watch it. Is that the algorithm with YouTube that just kind of doesn't show it because I'm a newer content creator? That I don't know. Um, you know, I feel like as long as I just stay repetitive at it, you know, my big thing is I always try to make a post a day, whether it's about, you know, something random, you know, or whatever, whether it's a story, a reel, or a post. I just try to put something out there, just so that way I always stay at least somewhat in the your guys' face when you're staring at your Instagram. Um, but you know, that's kind of my only thought process behind it at this point, and just hoping that maybe one day, you know, something's going to take off. You know, like I said, I've had a few, like when I was working with Drop Outdoors, where you know, I made the most, it was more of a funny post and it was just like nothing that I would have thought would have actually caught on. And next thing you know, it's 2 million views. And I'm going, okay, that was not something that I would have thought would have taken off. And then it did, you know. And you kind of just you're always hoping for one of those to finally just happen. And then next thing you know, you're at 5,000 followers, you know. But that's the social media side of it. But I don't ever want to sway away from what I'm truly doing. You know, that's one thing. I mean, I make a funny post here and there, but I pretty much always try to keep them more inspirational or about hunting or something like that. Where you know, when I look back on it, you know, 10 years from now, I still want to be proud of what I did. You know, I don't want to kind of just turn into another influencer kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah, and that's what makes it even better too. You're not just looking for the views or you know, there's a lot of people out there that even give this a shot for a while, but after, you know, a year or two or maybe even less, like they give up because they're not getting that immediate satisfaction and they're not here for the
Right.
right things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say the other, you know, big reason why I started it all up was, you know, for my kids. You know, I want them to look back when they're older and watching videos of me, you know, shooting big bucks or a bunch of does or an elk or whatever it is and go, man, my dad was really cool. I want to come home and show my buddies this video or whatever it is, you know, and just have that memory there always now saved to, you know, an area. And, you know, so I don't have to keep, you know, 30 videos that are 30 minutes long on my phone. I can upload them right to YouTube, and now they're there, and it's more than likely not going anywhere with the way YouTube is. So, that'll be nice to have all of that stuff just uploaded right there. They can go watch it whenever they want. So that's another, big reason behind it was just kind of documenting everything I'm doing and documenting for my kids to be able to see that in the future.
100%. Yeah, and speaking of elk hunting, you've done a handful of it, right?
So I've done no elk hunting yet. I've done
No?
mule deer.
Okay.
I'm going on an elk hunt this year, or I should say in 2027, going out to Montana. So I'm super excited about that because that is my dream hunt. Um, I've always wanted to do an elk hunt. Again, I'm blessed with meeting a bunch of people from like the Bull Hunter Chronicles and stuff like that, who, after working with them, talking with them a bunch, that they were in, they were willing. A buddy of mine, Tom, lives out in Montana, and so he was nice enough to let us all come out there and do black bear. So we did black bear. It was like 2 years ago. Um, didn't end up getting one while I was out there, but the next day, as soon as the day I left, they ended up smoking one. So that was pretty cool that they got one while we were out there. Um,
Totally. Was that with
oh,
bow or rifle?
that was with a rifle,
Okay.
and then we did mule deer with Johnny out in Idaho. Was that last year? And so that was really cool experience. Honestly, that to me was more what I would have expected for a backcountry hunt. When I went out black bear hunting, it was definitely more of a, I'm going to say laid back. We stayed in the camper. We did a fire every night kind of thing. I mean, we stayed up late. I mean, we hunted all day long, but it was a little more, I'm going to say, cushy. And then when we went out to Idaho and we were staying up in the mountains and stayed in tents, I mean, there was all the weather you could think of, snow, rain, fog, then it was sunny, it was just, windy, whatever you could think of. And we stayed up pretty high in the mountain, and it was definitely what I would consider more, maybe not quite full on backcountry, but definitely getting to that edge of you're in it pretty deep. And we did that for about a week. Drove straight out there, hunted, and then drove straight back. We didn't really have too many opportunities. Johnny had an opportunity at Mule Deer Doe while we were out there. But otherwise, we had grizzlies near camp. We had moose running around. It was pretty cool. The one kind of second to last day, Johnny and I went for a hike up the one ridge. It was so foggy, like you literally couldn't see from one side of your house to the other, kind of thing. I mean, it was like you can barely see anything, and you're just waiting for those breaks when the wind would blow that fog off that you could see what was kind of going on. And as we crested that ridge, it was like a tree uprooted out of the ground. Also, a 5x5 elk, at like 20 yards just stood up, and it was like, oh my God, this thing's huge. It was like my first time seeing an elk like in the wild, like right there. You know what I mean? So that was a very cool experience. And then it just disappeared. It was like it was never there. Couldn't hear it, nothing. But yeah, we went around, followed fresh tracks, tried to find something, but just couldn't turn anything up. But yeah, I mean, it was all the way around. It was a good experience going out there. Now this upcoming year, going out to Montana, this is hopefully the lucky year that I actually get something when I go out there. But it's going to be with a bow, and so I'm really excited for that. Honestly, for me, just to hear an elk bugle, at 60 to 80 yards, I would say the bucket list, that's checked off for me. I'd be happy. I could leave, honestly, right then and there and be happy with, that experience. Obviously, I'm hoping for an elk, but, it's one of those things. It's hunting. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's crazy, like the difference between hunting whitetail to mule deer and then elk is obviously its own species. Like it's just you think they would have like similar aspects, being like, they're still mammals on four legs and they're in the similar areas like on the mountain, and it's like they're totally different. And I'm in the same boat, at least last season, of I just wanted to hear the elk bugle and scream in my face, and I would have been happy. And I ended up getting 30 yards from, in my mind, a trophy bull, and it was a nice 6 by 6, and 30 yards away, I didn't even get an arrow knocked yet, so kind of screwed the pooch on that one. But I was just so thrilled to be able to, see it that close, know that I could have gotten it done if it was, for those technical moments. But just knowing that I was able to find them in the first place, it was just like game changer in my confidence when it came to elk hunting. So I'm super hyped that you're able to get out there, and just experience that. I think if I could choose any type of hunt, and right now at least, in the world, obviously this changes and year after more experience, but currently I'd say bow hunting elk is my favorite thing of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something I'm excited for. I mean, you watch all the videos, you watch all the things, and you're just going, man, this just looks cool. And I can remember being, 10 years old going, one day I'm going to do that. I actually, thinking back, I was actually over by my uncle's house, and his dad had a bull elk in his living room. And so when we went and visited my uncle's dad, we were able to see that, and I just remember walking in and seeing this elk take up, a quarter of this guy's living room, and I'm going, one day I'm going to shoot one of those. And it's just like I can just think of it and going, I'm gonna do it one day, and it's just stuck with me ever since then.
No, 100%. That's, yeah. My dad shot a nice bull out in Colorado, and one day I'm come home from school and he put it up in my room, and that's exactly the same mindset. I'm like, this is my goal when it comes to hunting, is to smoke one of these bad boys. And I mean, they're huge, like antlers wise, but also body mass. And it's like the meat from them are just, it's so delicious. Like by far my favorite wild game meat of all time as well. So that's just another positive about them.
Oh, 100%.
You can talk a little bit about what you're thinking as far as bow setup going out shooting elk compared to how you would whitetail in terms of spine arrow, um, broadhead, that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm gonna keep it pretty close to the same as what I'm running right
All right.
now. I run a little heavier, at like 518 total. I am thinking about changing my arrows right now. I'm running the Carbon Express Reds, at a 350 spine. Um, and then I was running the Buzz Cuts Bee Stingers, 100 grain broadhead. Um, I'm swaying back and forth right now between that and maybe switching to a mechanical like a Mega Meat. I'm not really swayed to one side or the other when it comes to broadheads. I know some people are very mechanical only, or non. And I don't really care. For me, it's whatever kills the animal the most efficient. And so I've had good luck with my bee stingers, but I'm not swaying to one side or the other at this point. But otherwise, I was actually looking to possibly switch my arrows. I'm still probably going to stay around the same grain weight if I'm being honest. I feel like that 500 to 550 is for me a I'm a 27-inch draw, so I'm trying to keep as much momentum going as possible. But I do pull at 70 pounds, so I'm planning on keeping that the same whether I'm whitetail or out shooting elk. And I haven't quite decided on my arrow setup for going out elk hunting yet. Like I said, it's probably going to be about the same grains, but I'm probably going to just switch to a different brand, only because I do shoot tack as well. And I found that the reds tend to stick in the target really hard in comparison to some of the other ones. It's almost like it welds itself. I've heard of that with other arrows as well, but it just is one of those things. It's kind of a pain when you're trying to pull from targets and you're doing that, you know, 100 times in a weekend. Your arm starts to get a little sore from just trying to pull them out.
For sure.
So the victory, I think it's the victory. Is it the TKO, something like that?
TKO or
Arrows.
rivals.
Yep, yep. I was looking at those as probably my next setup, if I'm being honest. probably going to stick at that like 300-ish for my spine. Um, we're going to kind of do a couple different setups. I actually made a paper tuner that I can run in my garage then. I got the chronograph so I can, kind of measure everything out. So I'm going to probably leave my setup the same for the rest of this year, but then I'm definitely going down the rabbit hole come the end of my whitetail season this year of figuring out exactly what I'm going to be running for going out to elk. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Yeah, I'm
tend to
running
not.
the
Go ahead.
I'm running those Victory rivals and would highly recommend if you're looking to switch to something. They're butter 340s.
Yeah, I was hearing a lot of good things about Victory, so that's where I've been more swaying towards the Victory arrows and wanting to kind of test them and run those a little bit. So I can see, the arrow flight, all that stuff. Coming into this next season, I also really want to start. I want to buy a bow press, and then I would like to actually really start getting down the rabbit hole of fletching my own arrows and doing all that as well. And I think that's going to be an exciting venture into the next season of kind of going out there with everything I made in a way, other than, obviously the arrow shafts themselves and doing all that. But I don't know, maybe there's a little bit more pride behind it for me when you kind of do it all yourself rather than just taking it to a shop and having them do everything for you. And that way you also learn when you're out in the field, as you guys know, when you're out in the field trying to, hunt and something happens on the bow, whatever it is, I don't want to have to be running all the way back to town to find a bow shop that's open when I should be out hunting. So if I can tie my own D loop or I can do whatever it is myself, just sitting right there and doing it, I would rather be able to do that rather than trying to hope that there's a shop open somewhere that'll do it and be able to get me in on time, within a reasonable amount of time. Most shops are pretty good. They know we're trying to get out and hunt, but sometimes when they're backlogged, they can't get you in right away.
No, 100%. I've run into that issue last season during elk season, and it definitely sucks. Thankfully, the guys at the shop know me pretty well, and they were able to hook me up right away. I was there 2 minutes before they opened, and literally sitting at the door and twiddling my thumbs just because I was like so antsy to get back into the woods. But yeah, it's not a situation you want to be in, and if you can, prevent that from happening, it's like why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely come to trying to learn to do a lot of it myself. Some of that is my more technician background from, my daily job, and so having that mindset of the mechanicals and trying to learn some of that stuff so I can do it myself is just a natural thing for me, which is nice. And so being able to hopefully retain a lot of that information and having good friends and stuff like that and videos to watch obviously helps. But trying to do it yourself is definitely, in my opinion, a lot of times the way to go if you have that kind of mindset of I'm going to figure this out.
But totally, 100%. When it comes to like practicing for an elk hunt specifically, especially being like from the Midwest and used to closer whitetail and the shots just naturally aren't as far and just the terrain too, like shooting steep downwards or steep uphill. How are you practicing? What are your distances you're shooting?
Honestly, I've pretty much averaged myself to about 60 yards. I mean, I'm shooting out to 80 to know that if I needed to do a follow-up shot or something like that. Honestly, I've shot out to 100 a couple times. It's one of those things I'm looking to hit the target. At that point, I'm not at 100 yards. As long as I'm within a paper plate or even a little bit outside of that, I'm pretty happy. Again, I'm not going to make that on an animal, even like a whitetail. I would never make a shot at 100 yards on a whitetail unless I'm just like, I put an arrow in it. I can tell it's injured. It's just standing there. I am going to try to do a follow-up shot on it. That would be the only time I'd probably poke out to 100 on any animal. But otherwise, I'm trying to keep it pretty much around 60 yards. As long as I'm dialed in at 60, I'm pretty happy with that. Like we mentioned, I shoot tack a few times. Honestly, that's been a good learning experience. I mean, if you're looking to, one, just enjoy going out and shooting, have some buddies maybe to get along with and drive up to a tack event. Honestly, a fun experience all the way around. It'll definitely teach you whether or not you're on or you're not. You might go with a dozen arrows and you might come back with two, so that's one of those things where it'll teach you really quickly if you're practicing enough or not. But honestly, it's been shooting tack with good buddies and kind of having that high pressure. The first year I went out there, I was very nervous. It's like my first time ever shooting, a lot of stuff like that kind of range. And so I shot horribly. I mean, I won't lie. I mean, I shot horribly. I think I went out there with 2 dozen arrows and came back with like a dozen. Um, and then this last year was quite a bit different. The pressure was there from all your buddies staring at you, and you're giving each other crap and everything else. But now it was more of I got to work on my own technique, figuring out how I need to do this. I was lucky enough, like I said, to go with a couple of good buddies. One of them is a very good archer, won many competitions, and I basically just told him straight up, "This is my, I would say, my fourth year bow hunting. I would say it's my third year really giving a crap. And so, are you willing to just watch me and tell me if there's anything you see that I'm doing that you think I should change?" And he's like, "Yeah, not a problem." And one of the first things he told me was my grip. He's like, "You're grabbing it too hard. You're holding that bow like it's going to just fall out of your hand every single time you shoot it." And I'm like, "Okay." And he kind of gave me a couple pointers on what to try. And by the end of it, the last two courses I shot, I didn't lose a single arrow. It's just like there's that confidence of, okay, I'm holding it the right way. Obviously, there's the technique with it, but then it's just the following through, and doing it right. Don't let the things bother you, and just shoot and have fun. And once I got that down, it was like, man, this is way better. But I'm shooting out to 60 pretty consistently. I'm lucky enough that I have an area right behind my house I can shoot out to 80 pretty easy. And then right in my front yard, I can shoot out to 40 pretty easy. So I'm pretty much trying to shoot almost every night, but kids, stuff like that get in the way. But I'll even go as far as sometimes just shooting in my garage. I mean, it's only 5 yards, but just getting that technique over and over and over and over again on how to, pull that back and shoot. And I've changed up my releases this year. I went with a thumb button this year over just the normal index, which I've loved it. I find it a little more smooth when I'm trying to, when I'm pulling back, I have that back. I don't know if it's just because my thumb has a little more muscle in it or whatever it is that when I go to use that instead of my index, I just feel smoother and it's more of just a nice, easy pop off rather than more of a surprise when I'm letting off with the index. Some people like that. That's where like the back tensions and stuff like that. Some people like that surprise. I prefer to feel a little bit more in control than that. And that's where that thumb button I think has really taken me to my next step in my bow hunting and shooting processes. So definitely been enjoying that one. But yeah, other than that, I would say TAC is definitely a good event for anybody who's looking to kind of practice out at those weird ranges or shooting at a deer behind a tree and all you can see is the vital. There was one at I won't forget it. You had to actually shoot through a tree in order to hit the vitals. It was like a small little twig, but I mean, it was like you have to shoot through the tree if you want to hit the 12, and so it's just like that's what everybody was doing. It was like, okay, well, let's go for it. Not something you'd probably do in a normal situation, but it gives you those surprise aspects that you're not necessarily expecting, so definitely a good thing to do. I know you were talking about going. Is that something that happened or is
Yeah,
that still
that's
coming up?
that's coming up this weekend actually. And I'm looking forward to it. I honestly, there's some things popped up in my schedule and I'm not sure if I'm able to make it anymore. Um, but I'm hoping to. Yeah, so it's kind of up in the air for myself, but it is this weekend. Um, and I totally could see how it'd be great practice, especially for that Western hunting like style. And remind me where you went for your tech.
Let's see, this year I went to Crystal Mountain, Michigan. Last year I went to Boyne Mountain. It's about the same drive. The one you go over the top, over the bridge, and then the other one I came from the bottom. You could take the ferry across, but it was one of those things, it didn't really make sense um, with cost effective and all that stuff. And then I ended up stopping over by my buddy Austin with Genesis 3D printing. So it was kind of cool seeing that his whole shop and doing all that. Um, so yeah, it didn't really pay for me to take the ferry over, just the cost of everything. But yeah, it was really good, on both mountains. I personally would say I really liked Crystal Mountain more this year than I did Boyne last year. Just a, you know, personal feel of, how many targets and where the targets were located and, some of that stuff. And then even like the vendor village, they do a big village in there where, they have vendors like Matthews, Hoyt, a lot of big names. And then they also have a lot of your local vendors and stuff too. But so you can check out all the new bows, you can check out all that stuff and pick up some new gear. That's where I actually met the 2.0 gear guys last year. I met them, and then I saw them at Crystal Mountain this year, and then we just kind of rekindled that fire of talking to them. But yeah, it was definitely would say Crystal was a good one to go to this year.
Awesome. Yeah, you answered my question. I was just gonna ask which one did you like better? Is that where you would go next year?
I would say yeah. I would say I'd probably end up going back to Crystal next year. It's one of those things as the years go on, maybe I'll end up hitting both, and we'll kind of see what happens. Or I kind of want to try hitting the one that is coming up here on this weekend, and just kind of change them up every year and just kind of see what happens. But I'll definitely probably be back to Crystal. It was definitely a good time all the way around. Everybody I was hanging out with, but also just um, shooting and the courses that they had, they definitely did a good job this year.
Good to hear. Awesome. Just to rewind a little bit, when you were talking about your switching releases, what release did you go from and to, and what are you using now?
So I actually have them sitting right here. So I have the True Fire, just index right here, and then I have the True Fire Synapsis that I was running. Honestly, I was talking with a buddy of mine, and he was talking about his True Fire and how much he likes it. One, because it was pretty relatively cheap in the course of like what releases can cost nowadays. I mean, as we know, I mean, bow hunting gear can cost crazy numbers sometimes. And like I was looking at some of the hinge from like UltraView and some of the other ones, and it was brand new. I mean, they're going $300 plus. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those, but then he's like, you can get the same thing pretty much out of this. Yeah, maybe it's not as shiny or whatever it is, or a little different setup on how the release actually works. But altogether, it's going to do the exact same thing. And you can pick up a new one, I think, for around like 250 bucks. I was lucky enough, honestly, I went on eBay and found one, and the guy was asking 125 bucks for it. So I picked it up, and honestly, I've liked it ever since. The adjustments on it are very easy. It's just two little Allen screws for getting your tension and stuff like that. And I just took a string in my garage, and I was literally just putting it on the string and pulling it back, and then until I kind of felt like where I got it from, or to a point of like a starting point. Kind of figured that out, and then I just went outside, like I said, grabbed an arrow, started shooting at the target until I got it kind of fine tuned. But honestly, um, for a cheaper release, it's doing everything that I need it to do. It feels good in the hand. The little grip that they have for your thumb feels good. It's not sharp or anything like that. It's just a nice little grip to it. I like the little extra finger that's on it, so that way my whole hand can kind of be in it, and not just some of those where it's just like your middle finger and your index are kind of in there. I'm not a huge fan of those. I tried a couple different releases. I did try the UltraView hinge too, back tension when I first was kind of messing around with them. And personally, I just couldn't get used to the back tension part of it. And maybe that's just my inexperience in the bow hunting standpoint, and I know there is some of that. But it was just very hard for me to get used to having to keep just tweaking my back until it finally let off. And then I'm trying to also focus on, staying on target and everything. So like I'm on target and I just, keep going back until finally it pops off. And I know that's how it's supposed to be. but I just personally couldn't get used to it. And so that's where I really liked the option of the thumb button. And like I said, for me, it just came down to more of a cost effectiveness, and kind of trying to get the same aspect of a good thumb button without having to spend $350, $400 on one. So that's kind of why I went with that style. And honestly, I'm happy I did because I love this release. It's been really good to me. Um, and yeah, I'll definitely probably look into the True Fires in the future. Not saying I would never sway away if a good deal came around for another thumb button, but it's definitely the one I'm going with right now.
I'm taking notes, mental notes right now. I use an index release, and I've always been curious. I'm just nervous for the transition of like just form and everything when it comes to switching to the thumb. But I mean,
I will
definitely some
say
good intel.
it wasn't as bad as I will say like I said, the back tension for me, if I was going to recommend to anybody, for me personally, I'd recommend starting with the thumb button and then working into a back tension. I feel like a lot of times in my hunting experiences, I do it backwards, where I get the thing that probably shouldn't have started with, and then I end up going with the thing I should have. But that's just how it works for me. But I'll be honest with that thumb button, it wasn't as bad as what I thought. And some of that just comes down to just shooting it. Um, but I will agree. You go from kind of being more like this to turning your hand and being more against your face with it. And so there is a time if you set that too hot, you'll probably punch yourself in the face. I mean, it's going to happen. Um, but after a few times and you get used to it, honestly, it's not overly difficult. Um, but yeah, coming from the index, it was definitely a little different. But I will say that it's worth it. At least for me, it was worth it to switch. I felt like I was getting a little bit of target panic, or the anxiety when I'm holding the index for some reason. Like, I don't know if it was because I wasn't quite comfortable with it or whatever it was, but I kind of had that anxiety when I was shooting, and I felt like it was definitely throwing off. I was torquing my bow or whatever it is, and it kept throwing my arrows. So I'd be shooting perfect, and then all of a sudden it'd be like I'd have one that's high right, and I'd be going, where did that thing come from? And then now it's in your head, and you're sitting there thinking about it, and you're going, man, why am I doing that? And now you're shooting all over. I personally haven't had that yet with my thumb button. I'm kind of concentrated when I'm using it. Um, and I don't know, maybe more peaceful even when I'm shooting with that versus my index.
It seems like the
Sweet.
index trigger leads to a lot more punching than a thumb does. I've shot an index since I was a freshman in high school, and I've wanted to make the switch for the last couple of years just because I've heard and watched videos on how using a thumb or back tension can lead to more accurate results long term, and you're keeping a similar motion, and it's going to be similar over time to where an index just by punching it or doing something a little bit different can cause you to swing your shot, kind of like you were saying with torque.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I had an index release, almost the exact same one. It was just probably like the Gen 1 of the one that I have here. And I lost it. It turns out my little brother took it and didn't tell me. But so I actually bought the same exact one, brand new, the one that you just saw. And literally, I started shooting with it, and I'll be honest, I hated it. It was like, what am I doing differently, than the other one? And I wasn't doing anything different. It was just that for some reason, it just wasn't flowing with how I was shooting. And I always just chalked that up at first to my inexperience of shooting a bow. Like I said, I mean, I only did it, you know, a few years. I shot a little bit in high school. I had a bow for only like a year, but I didn't really take it very seriously. So again, I'm getting into this I'm basically training myself, watching some videos here and there, but just trying to get myself good at it, and again, smashing my face against the table till I just got it right. And I just wasn't getting it right. And then I finally, like I said, if it wasn't for going to TAC and talking with my buddies, and they were all shooting thumb buttons or back tensions or whatever. I mean, not all of them, but most of them. And so it was just one of those things where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it and see what happens. And like I said, I won't go back. It's just one of those things. I just won't go back to an index just because of how much more flow and just, I don't know, the whole feel of it pulling back with the back tension just feels better in my hand all the way around. So I would agree with you on that one. It is something to do with like the index is there to me as a starter. If you just want to get into bow hunting and you just want to shoot, the cheapest way to go about it is an index. You know, it's just because you can get one for 50 to 100 bucks, and you know you can get out and shoot. But once you start shooting, and now you're actually starting to, I'm going to say, care about what you're shooting and what you're shooting at, um, you're going to find yourself transitioning out of that index at some point. Maybe not. I mean, I see a lot of people who run the index because it works for them. I just think a lot of people should try the thumb button at least once, to just see and feel it, because I think you'll end up liking it a little bit more. But maybe not. Again, some people, everybody's anxieties are different when they're shooting. You know, it's one thing I've learned. Everybody's a little different, and it might work for the index for some people. But I would tell you, just try the thumb and see what happens.
Yeah. Are you more of a one eye open or both eye?
So I've been working on both eyes open. It's a little different. I'll do it on, um, like when I'm like open field shooting, you know, like out in my front yard or whatever. I have no problem doing that. When I start getting into my longer ranges and stuff like that, instinctively I want to close it, and I tend to find myself doing that. But I would say I'm working towards trying to be both eyes open. I think it would, I think it's going to help me greatly in the out west side, especially. You know, all of a sudden you might see that elk out of the corner of your eye, but if it was closed, you wouldn't have seen that. You know what I mean? So that's what's in my head is I'm more what's happening on the side that I wouldn't have normally seen because my eyes closed. But it is definitely something that's hard to get used to. When you're so, you know, you spend so many years just always having the one eye closed, even with rifles. You know, it's like, uh, you train your body is trained to have it closed, and now you're trying to change something that was 13 years of doing, you know, one eye closed with stuff, and now you're changing that.
For sure. I switched to both eyes open 2 years ago, and it just opened up a whole new world. I mean, I just felt like I was so much more steady with my shot and could focus on the target. But having the blurry pins is definitely something to get used to. But I'm much more accurate now since I switched to both eyes open. It just, and I never knew people had done that before. I just seen a little YouTube short video on it from Bow Only Outdoors, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And I haven't went back since I tried it.
Yeah, honestly, that was the same thing that happened with me. I didn't even think about something like that. I just thought that was a normal thing to have an eye closed. And
Yeah,
then I started
exactly.
watching a bunch of videos, and I was like, whoa, these guys are shooting with both eyes open. And I'm like, yeah, I just was like, well, I'll give it a try. And I was pretty off like the first few times. And then, like, as I got used to it, it was like, oh man, this actually isn't that bad. You know, so again, it's just more of like an instinctive thing now. I catch myself doing it. It's just like my grip. You know, I have to, before I, you know, I'll pull back and literally, I mean, I have to tell myself so many times where I'm like, fix your grip, dude. Like, what are you doing? You know, like, you know, stop, like, just think the whole process through. You know, even like bow hunting whitetail, you know, it's like the same thing, you know, like you're up in the tree. Obviously you got that, that rush of adrenaline is pumping through you. You're going, you're seeing this buck walking towards you. You know, and it's like, okay, he's doing everything that he needs to be doing. And if I play this right, I can I can smoke this deer. And that's exactly what happened 2 years ago. Or actually, sorry, no, this last year. I had a nice 8 pointer come in. Um, it was kind of funny when we talk about trail cameras. I was sitting up in my saddle and I was sitting there and trail camera ping went off and it was literally 40 yards from me. But it was so thick I can't see anything, you know, but this buck's walking in just like I was expecting him to. And I was expecting him to come down the swamp edge right in front of me, to the west. And I didn't see him. I mean, he like disappeared, you know? So I'm like, okay, maybe he went and he stayed more north from me and I can't see it because it's all thick and he just worked his way off, which they've done that. So I was like, okay. Well, all of a sudden, 20 minutes later, here he comes right down the swamp edge. He's barely trotting, you know, and just kind of walking right at me, you know. And now this is my first year really trying to self film and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, get the camera ready. Where is he going to be? Doing all that. Adrenaline's pumping because this is the biggest buck, one of the biggest bucks I've had in front of me, bow hunting ever. He's sitting at 40 right now, and I'm just waiting for him to come in. And so he comes in, he's at less than he's probably at 25, 30 yards. And I felt like he was more broadside than what he was. So I pulled back. I had him pinned. The one thing I regret, and I'll regret forever, is that I didn't stop him because I figured he was going slow enough. And I released, and I ended up I didn't realize I hit him because I had a full pass through, and so it hit a branch right behind him, and I saw the branch shake, and I'm like, ah, I shot right over the top of him. And he took off, and I was watching him. I could see him at 45 yards, and he was just standing there, and I'm like, okay, the guy didn't hit him, and yeah, so I ended up working my way down, and sure enough, I walk over and there's blood on the arrow, and so it was just like, oh man, I hit this deer. But it was just like the understanding of doing the process. Had I done it right, I probably would have had a better opportunity at actually killing that deer. Had I pulled back when I should have, had I, you can analyze it all every time, something like that happens. But I feel like in my head, had I slowed myself down, let him do what I know he was going to do, which was come broadside from me, because he was just going to follow the trail like every other time. But I was so excited that this deer is standing in front of me. I rushed the shot and I ended up injuring a deer. Again, luckily, all things disclosed. I got a dog in. We couldn't find him. That next night, I ended up getting a trail camera video of him. I could see right where I hit him, and he was walking by. And I just hit him too far back in what a lot of people call the no man's zone. There was nothing there. It was very rear. I didn't hit any of the guts or anything. That deer's probably still running around back there, hopefully, because I want a chance at him this year. But yeah, again, had I just followed that start to finish whole process, I probably would have had a better opportunity at really killing that deer. Um, you know, but I also put out a whole video series that on that last year. That was on the Drop 'Em Outdoors yet when I was with them. And the last video I posted was that video of that hunt. And I was just very truthful in it, and it's the side of hunting that no one wants to see and no one wants to talk about because everybody just wants to see big bucks getting killed and stuff. But every once in a while, you got to have that video that's out there that just says, hey, you can injure a deer, but if you do everything you possibly can to try and find it and do what you can, I'm not going to hold that against you. Like I said, I got a dog in, I did all the things I could, but sometimes there's the ugly side of hunting, and you never want to, no one wants to talk about it, but sometimes it has to be said.
100%. Yeah. And that's important when it comes to this type of stuff, like content creation and putting it out to the public. Like it's very humbling, obviously. But it is important for people to know that like we put in all this effort for this one animal and then it's still like it's never given, It's always hard hard work that earns it and not like I don't know, shooting off the road or like poaching or anything like that, especially nowadays. I know there was a recent,
I was just
uh,
going to say,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure
yeah,
anyone listening knows what I'm talking about. But recent YouTubers that got caught poaching, and it's like there's too much of that throwing out negativity. Where it's like, yes, it's not great when you like hit a bad shot on a deer, but it's the honest truth. And you, like you said, if you try your hardest to find the animal and make sure they're okay, or keep looking until they're retrieved because maybe it just was a bad shot, but it needed to sit for a while and then go back out later and retrieve them. Like whatever way it goes, just to respect wildlife and be honest about it to the public.
yeah, I would say that's one of my big things is I always try to be very respectful to the animal. And anybody, who's got a heart is going to say the same thing. I mean, when you injure a deer like that, whether it's a doe, buck, whatever it is, I mean, you're going to feel tore up for a while. I mean, shoot, I mean, even right now, I'm still tore up about it, even though it's happened last year. It's one of those things you think about, and also it's like, yeah, you know what, man, I wish I would have did that. And that's just part of it. But yeah, having that respect, um, that's a big thing for me. When I shoot an animal or whatever it is, I try to get all the meat off. I do all the cutting up in my own garage. I do all the processing, all that stuff, and I don't leave that scrap there. I don't just, I'm, I'm not one to just shoot a deer, cut the head off and leave it. If I was ever a part of a situation like that, I can tell you I would be very disappointed in the person that I'm with who did that. And they would definitely be hearing it from me.
Yeah. No, totally. And yeah, and it's important to hold people reliable or responsible for that stuff because it's like, I don't know, just to get the word out there that like that's not okay because some people are either like not raised right or something's obviously going on where it's like, hey, they just might need a little nudge the right way. I've had buddies like, for example, when I asked you how far are you shooting, what are you comfortable with, and you said you're practicing out to 80, even 100, but you're not going to take anything more than 60. It's good to put those limits on yourself, and that's exactly how I am too. I practice at 80, won't take anything past 60, and like even last year I skipped a shot at a buck that was at 60 just because I didn't feel totally confident in it. But then I have buddies that I've talked to even because they're like, yeah, I've practiced up to 40, but if it's at 50 and 60 and it's big, I'm gonna take the shot. It's like, oh, that's not really how you should think about it, you can't just aim high and hope for the best when it's a live animal and like
Yeah,
yeah,
like I said, I'm definitely one like I understand when people take, if you're practicing every day, and you're shooting at 80 every single day and you're confident in that 80, who am I to tell you not to take that shot?
right,
I mean, um, but at the same rate, if you like you kind of just said, if you're shooting at 20 in your backyard and that's all you've ever shot, and then now you're going to go make a poke at 80, I might have a little bit more of a thing to say about that because I'm going, dude, you've never shot out to 80. Like, why would you think that that's an ethical thing to do?
right.
And that's definitely not something I would be willing to do. Now, I'd be willing to shoot out on a whitetail. I'd shoot out to 40. I again, I've shot out to 60. I would probably not make that shot if depending on the situation. If I'm in the deer woods, you're not getting a shot out really past 20 to 25 probably anyways. Um, on an elk, I can definitely understand where shooting out to 60, you got double the target there, maybe even bigger. You're willing to have that paper plate or whatever on an elk versus on a whitetail. I can understand that. Well, that's also where like I'm not against a follow-up shot. Like if I already hit that animal and they're injured and they haven't gone down right in front of me and they're standing at 20 yards more than what I just shot at, that's why I like having the adjustable sight. I got a 3-pin slider. I can roll right to that 80 and I'll send an arrow for a follow-up shot. I'm not against doing something like that to make sure that animal is dead, and can hopefully drop right in front of me and be the most ethical hunter I can be and get that animal down right away. That's just anything, even with a rifle. I would do the same thing. I want to make sure that that animal is down and not running around injured. And that's when it hurts the most when you know that animal's injured running around and you made a bad shot and you know it. And it's just one of those things where you got to live with that, unfortunately, and hope that that animal doesn't.
100%. Yeah, and I've spoken about this is another very humbling moment well, bow hunting, but last year the nice buck that I shot, it was in the most ideal shot of my life. I made the mistake of ranging him at 40 and he was walking towards me. Um, and then by the time he like presented a broadside shot, it was like 30 yards. And I knew that like in my head, I was like, okay, that's 30 yards. That's like estimated about 10 yards right there. And I drew back. And for some reason, like my mind just kept thinking about the 40 that my rangefinder told me. And so I made the shot with my 40-yard pin and I ended up spining him. And immediately just, saw him go down. I'm like, got real thrilled right away, but then realized I'm like, oh shoot, that arrow is way too high. Like that's not gonna put it down, So ended up using like way more arrows than I should have on it, but it's just like at that time it's on the ground and it's in misery. And it's not easy to witness and let alone like knowing that you could have done better but at the same time, just to be able to put a solid shot in him so he's not in pain anymore. And that's like the best I could do in the moment. And so that's what I did. But like I said, I mentioned this on the podcast before, and it goes back to like being honest with the people. This is what happened. I'm not making the perfect shot every time. Like we're human, right? Like mistakes
Right.
happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely something that anybody who's been hunting long enough, especially bow hunting long enough, is going to say the same thing, that maybe they don't want to admit to it at the start that they made bad shots or whatever it is, but it's going to be one of those things where you're probably going to, you could definitely make, I could make a bad shot this year. You know, I mean, it could happen again. You just never know. It's all situational. But as long as you're honest with yourself and, like you said, honest with the people that you're trying to share content to me, that's a little bit more respect earned. Now, if you go 10 years in a row of every deer you shoot, all you do is spine them or something like that, okay, I would probably tell you you need to start, practicing a lot more before you get out in the woods or whatever it is. But for the first few years of just hunting, to me, that's where like shooting does is big for me. Like I personally wouldn't shoot a doe that still got a fawn. That's just me personally. But once those spots are gone, personally, I kind of look at that as fair game. And so I'm probably going to shoot those does for practice, as bad as it sounds, but to just get some animals under your belt, get used to, the hunting process of, okay, I have a doe standing in front of me. What is my shot process? I'm going to shoot this doe. Obviously, eat the meat and do all that stuff. So that way, in the future, when you have that big buck standing in front of you, hopefully you have that process down better. You're a little less nervous because you've already killed a couple deer. And now that process comes cleaner and you can actually harvest that nice buck without having so much of the spining and whatever. I mean, full transparency, I spined my first buck as well with my bow. He came in way closer than I was expecting. I shot a bit high, just thinking that he was farther than what he was because he was standing at 40, and it was funny. I just started can calling. It was like prime rut, and I just started can calling that buck. And after 7 times, he just came right up to me. I thought he was at 20 yards. He was probably more like 10. And so it was just like one of those things at the angle I was at. I shot, and I just saw exactly where it hit. He dropped, and like you said, though, I put a follow up shot on him pretty much right away, and then he was dead. But it was one of those things where, again, the inexperience of not having a deer ever that close to me while I'm bow hunting was like, oh man, I think I'm holding right. And so I shot, and like I said, I just hit high. But it's about what you do with it after the fact. Um, again, I've been watching a lot of the gritty films that he's putting out right now, Brian Call, and he's got a mule deer hunt. And one of the things that he did is he spined the one deer, I think it was. And it was just like one of those things where, or I don't think he spined it, but he made a bunch of mistakes with his rifle and all this other stuff. But he just filmed it all and he showed it and was just honest with it. And it was just one of those things where it was like, and what it was another guy ended up shooting and hitting it, and that's where the wounded deer come in. But it was just like just being honest with it, and just knowing that mistakes happen. It's about what you do after the fact. It's what you do, okay, I just spined this deer, now I'm just going to let it lay there, and it's like, well, no, you need to finish what you started, kind of thing. um, you know be a big boy, pull your pants up, and it's just part of that industry, and you just gotta do it.
Totally. 100%. Um, shoot. Oh yeah. I'm sorry if you mentioned it, but I don't know if I caught it. But are you hunting out of a tree stand or like a saddle setup? What's your setup like?
So this year, the last couple of years, I've been running a saddle. So I've been running just a Latitude Classic saddle, and just one of their more classic platforms. I did pick up some new ropes this year, so we'll see how that goes. I used to more tree stand hunt, just to hang on and kind of did it that way. I personally got sick of trying to carrying all that into the woods. It's all heavy, and when you're trying to go deep or whatever it is, like the last thing I want to be doing is now being super loud, trying to set up this hang on, when I'm trying to be quiet and obviously get into a tree. So I kind of got put onto the saddle hunting thing a couple years ago. when I went to the Hunter Expo in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Latitude had their stuff. There was a few other ones, and I just preferred the Latitude. It was a little less, there's a lot less straps and stuff like that that I'm dealing with. Because when I'm trying to climb onto a tree in the dark, and as you know, it's can be hard or difficult, and you're trying to be quiet and you're trying to do all these things, and it's like, okay, what what is the easiest way for me to do this? So saddle hunting was where I kind of went to, and honestly, it's one of those things I really enjoy it, um, being that I can literally almost pick any tree in the woods and I can climb in it. As long as I can get the ropes around it, or it doesn't bend over when I try to climb in it, I'm pretty much solid. So I try to watch, for limbs and stuff like that. Obviously, you're trying to make it somewhat easy to get in that tree. But yeah, I've been really enjoying the saddle hunting side of things. I did some, of the ladder stands and stuff. We still have a couple over by my grandpa's place, but I don't find myself really sitting in them. Again, unless I'm just trying to do the gun season, and I'm just looking to get into a tree to just sit and relax for a while, and I'm not really thinking about anything and just kind of waiting for a deer. Maybe I'll climb in one of those, but honestly, the saddle's been my go-to. Uh, and it's definitely something that it can be a game changer for public land hunters. I could understand where maybe a lot of people don't run that stuff on private land. If you have, a nice setup where you can have a ladder stand, or you can have a ground blind, or you can do whatever. Um, but honestly, even some of the guys I know that have a bunch of private land, they'll still run their saddle when they know a buck is coming through in a certain time frame, and maybe he's in this one area, that they don't have a ladder stand because they don't want to scare them away. Deer are they're not always the smartest, but then they're also always the smartest. So it's one of those things where, um, having it's not there to replace your existing setup. It's there to just add to the arsenal of things for you to be able to get on a deer. I mean, that's really what it's there for. Um, I will tell you one thing I am happy I picked up last year was some sort of a knee pad. The first year I saddle hunted, I didn't run knee pads. I kind of just had a smaller pad in my pants that I was running, and it worked, but definitely on those longer sits, it definitely got pretty uncomfortable after a while where I was like, okay, I'm investing in some decent knee pads for, when I'm up here. So if you're looking at doing the saddle hunting thing, I would definitely look into some knee pads.
Good deal. I better do that because yeah, I just got my first setup. They literally just got delivered like a day ago. Um and yeah, I'm just trying to get some pro tips before just, winging it at this point, but I definitely got to get out there and practice a little bit. Um I do think it will be a big game changer, even on private land. Because I mean, yeah, normally I'm in a ladder stand that's already preset. We don't move it just because it's already in a pretty decent spot. But there's been like more spots that are kind of catching our eyes, and I'm moving game cams over there at the start of this summer, and that's where all the big bucks are chilling right now. So I'm like, okay, gotta either move a stand back there and, disrupt some stuff, or learn to saddle hunt. So that's
What
where
setup did you end up going with?
I actually partnered up with Hunt Arsenal, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and I met them at what was it, the Wisconsin Dells Hunt Expo. So it was great to meet them, and I tried out actually. Oh, I'm forgetting the name of the other brand. It wasn't Latitude because I've heard a lot about Latitude and looked online at their website. But then there was another brand at the expo that I kind of tested out. But I honestly really felt just more comfortable with Hunt Arsenal and their setup. And I mean, after talking for a while, like similar with the camo brand you're rolling with, it's like, all right, if you want to partner up, I'll definitely support you guys and, help each other out as the hunting industry does. So, looking forward to trying it, but just gotta kind of find a good
I
time to
would
do
say
so.
you definitely got to That's one thing again, I'm just really bad about like getting out and sometimes practicing with certain things. It's like I'll just go do it in the woods. Like I don't have the time for this. I'm busy running around doing whatever with work or doing side jobs or whatever. And so now I'm just trying to get out and hunt. And so now, over the course of the last couple of years, I've obviously spent a lot more time um, practicing and getting better with it now that I'm taking this a lot more seriously than I ever have. But that was one thing in the first year when I picked up that saddle. I was like, oh, I'll just go take care of it. I'll do it out in the woods. Not a big deal. And yeah, that was a big regret. That was like I should have definitely practiced a little bit more, got used to it at least a few times of the understanding of, okay, what's my process when I'm trying to get into the tree? What are some things that maybe I need to help myself get into the tree and make it more simplistic so that way I'm not trying to make it this big hard thing of me trying to get into the tree. And that's where my buddy Austin with Genesis 3D printing really shined, because I first really met him was a couple years ago when I started hunting, and was kind of watching his products, and he had so many products where it was just, well, I would make that so much easier, and like, oh, I didn't even think of that, and so like on my saddle itself, I have like a couple clips for just like being able to put my platform and just hook it on the back of my saddle. So as I'm climbing, I don't have to pull my whole backpack off just to be able to pull my platform out. Once I get to where I want to be on the tree, I literally just unhook it off my saddle and I pull it up and it's right there and I can strap it up. And so it's little things like that where you're kind of like, well, man, first couple times you're like, well, where am I going to hold all this stuff? How am I going to like situate all this so that way I can hook it on something so that way I can climb up easier or do whatever. And once you start realizing how much you kind of want something like that, you start looking into it a little bit more, and that's where, like I said, his 3D printed stuff came into play because it's light, it's robust, and it does what I need it to do, and it's not super hard to figure out. One little clip or one little thing can change the whole thing on how you would end up getting into the tree. And as you know, sometimes just getting into the tree is half the battle of trying to stay quiet, trying to not drop stuff or whatever it is. When you're climbing 3/4 of the way up the tree and now one of your sticks falls to the ground because you didn't hook it right, because you didn't have a good way to do it, having those accessories to make sure that stuff holds tight is game changer. I've had a number of times where I'm climbing into the tree and you take your time, you're getting in there, and all of a sudden, there's a doe standing there, and now you're just standing there waiting because you don't want to make too much noise. But like, had I dropped that stick that time, that deer would have been nowhere around me. So as long as I do it right and I get into the tree quietly, hopefully they won't notice, and those deer will just keep moving around me like they should be.
For sure. Definitely. Yeah. And that's why I'm like almost stressing myself out a little bit because it's getting down to crunch time in the, big, in the big outlook on things. But it's like, I just need to watch a couple of YouTube videos, get out there, get my hands on it, totally run it through and shoot out of it too. Practice, 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 and as much as I can. But it definitely is like kind of coming down to crunch time here in Wisconsin, at least. I know Logan, we were just talking beforehand that you're kind of in the same boat, need to get out and practice more, but like you got a little bit more time than us, waiting for October 1st, I believe you said. And I mean, not that I don't want to start hunting as soon as possible, but it's kind of nice to know that you have like a little bit more time just to get things prepared and kind of mastered by the time you're there. Definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy looking back, a few years ago where it was like, at least a lot of the buddies that I was hanging out with, they were saddle hunting from the start of saddle hunting, so it was like, okay, they're all on the end. But you start talking and asking around, at least in Wisconsin around me, it was kind of like nobody I know saddle hunts. It was like barely know a lot of people who even bow hunt a lot of times. So it was like, okay, like who do I have around me to kind of figure this out with? And honestly, I didn't have that many, so it was like I'm just gonna figure this out, and then I'll ask my other buddies, just for tips and tricks as I go, because a lot of them are from Michigan, so it's not something where I can just pull up at their house and be like, hey, let's go do this. So it was kind of nice though, with video chatting them and everything, where it was just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. They're like, oh, I'll try that. So it definitely makes a big difference when you have people to, reach out to and kind of figure that out. So yeah, definitely if you have anything, feel free to reach out. I'll definitely see how I can help. But yeah, it's a little bit different once you start doing it. But once you figure it out, I mean, being able to shoot, almost completely around the tree, definitely is an awesome feeling when you're, getting used to that. And, again, some of that's just getting comfortable in the system. Like in the first year, I would have not been making myself go completely around the tree or turning myself almost completely around in my saddle so I could shoot behind me if I wanted to. And getting comfortable with that feeling of like, okay, this is I'm hanging from a tree and I'm now basically dangling, doing, one of those and trying to do that. Where now I'm kind of like, okay, I'm a little more comfortable with it. I can turn myself and tweak it. And it definitely is a game changer when you're trying to make a shot. But like you said, practice, practice, practice of, practicing out of that saddle. So when you're on your non-dominant way of shooting, and you're coming over the top, that's definitely one of those things. You're not used to shooting that way, and you have a rope in your way, and now you're trying to, your hat's in your way. All this stuff is in your way that when you're shooting out in your front yard, those are perfect conditions. Those are the ways that you hope you could shoot a deer that way, but it isn't going to happen. Um, so now you got to actually practice that way, and that tack is another way of doing that. When you're wearing a hat or you're wearing longer pants because they don't cut trails always, or whatever it is, or you got a longer shirt on maybe that you're not used to, like a sun shirt, because when you're sitting out in the sun for 2 days straight shooting archery and you're there from basically sun up to sun down shooting, you're going to be sunburnt like a mother if you're not wearing a sun shirt, or something like that. So getting used to having a hood now dangling in your way, I mean, little things like that can just literally be a game changer when you're sitting in the tree and now you got a hat on. Maybe you don't shoot with a hat on when you're standing in your front yard. Well, you probably should, just because that's how you're going to be hunting. Practice how you hunt, would be a big one for me, of just telling people, like, you know, it's not something you maybe want to do, but you kind of gotta.
100%. Logan, do you have any last questions before we get this wrapped up? We've been going for an hour and a half already. It doesn't even feel like it's been that long,
Right?
but I don't want to keep you up too late. I know you're
I, I'll say definitely, let me know when it works for you guys. I mean, I could probably talk for a week straight. I enjoy hunting that much. I just, there's many other stories and many other things that just, we didn't really talk much even about the buck behind me, but, we can get to that next time. That'll be a little zinger, but,
let's do
um,
it.
I definitely enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah, appreciate having you on. I know, do you want to run a little promo for yourself? I know you got a big giveaway going on right now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right now I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram. So I got a big giveaway I'm doing. Basically, at 500 followers, I'm going to add something into the giveaway, and then at 1,000, I'm going to add something into the giveaway. But all you got to do is go to Relentless Ridge Instagram, like the page, tag 3 friends on the pin post at the top, for the giveaway announcement. And yeah, I'm basically just trying to get up there, and there's some pretty good stuff in there. Right now, I'm sitting at about $400 worth of stuff in the giveaway. I mean, 2 cell cams, bunch of gear from Genesis 3D printing, 2 tagged and bag kits. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff. So I kind of have some ideas of what I'm going to do for the add-ins, um, but we'll see. I know Johnny was trying to get me to put a bow in there. I don't know that that's quite where I'm at yet, but We'll see. But yeah, and then I have another just little giveaway going on too. Once I hit 250 followers, I'm going to do a hat giveaway. So got a bunch of hats. I just got the patches in, so I'm going to probably actually get those all put together. And then yeah, so I appreciate it. And yeah, feel free to like and follow and share and do all that stuff. Tag along. It's going to be an adventure. And like I said, I got a bunch of fun stuff coming with whitetail this year. And then I think elk is going to be my big one next year.
Hell yeah,
I have
man.
another maybe hunt that's going to happen, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But I want to go to South Dakota for buffalo, so we'll see
Whoa,
about that one.
that'd be
I'm,
fun.
I'm yeah, I kind of got a good buddy of mine that has an in there, so I might talk to him and might do something like that, but that might not be this year. So yeah, appreciate it, guys.
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, everyone listening, go check out Relentless Ridge. I'm gonna put a tag or a link in the description to both the YouTube and Instagram so you guys can check them out. But appreciate you coming on, Keegan, and hopefully we can talk soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thanks, guys.